And of course, we've got the World Trade Organization that is going on right now. And it was my desire to have one of the business editors come in and, you know, sort of just give us details of how we've been covering that. However, given that it's still going on now, it was difficult to get any of them because they are stationed there. But Mwenda Kilemi, maybe looking at some of the stories that have been coming out of that and whether we have fully made it palatable to the Mwananchi. One of the things I remember before the meeting started was reports of how there's a lot of technical jargon. There's a lot of information that would probably go over the heads of the ordinary Mwananchi who does not care about that. Have we been able to bring that to make it palatable to?
I think we are doing a good job of it. From about 2 months ago, there was reporting on how the farming and agricultural industry in Kenya is hurt by international trade.
Yes, I remember with the coffee.
Yeah, with the coffee, with the tea. And so it's like maybe there was a build-up to the meeting with all these stories because that showed how the regular person on the ground is affected by trade done at in international level. And I'm very happy at the critical way we have looked at international trade. This would not have been the case a couple of years ago. So it's good to see that we are asking questions of, are we being treated fairly? And this is something that the international media will not ask because they have their own interests. So it's up to us as Africans to ask the question, is world trade working for us? And it seems that the questions are being asked, and hopefully we can get the right reaction from the people, and our leaders can also push through a system that can help us. Okay, David, in terms of the coverage and the reportage so far, it's only in day 2 today. So of course there is what has already been reported. Have we been satisfactory in our reporting?
So far I think we've done a very good job trying to explain to our audiences the implications of having that meeting in Kenya and in Africa for the first time, and a country that has been struggling within the ranking of nations. For such a conference to be held here, I think we must say kudos. There have been lots of endorsements this year alone, and this comes following up the visit by President Obama, the visit by the Pope himself, the Italian Premier, and now hosting that critical meeting. For me, it's a milestone that Kenya should look at and celebrate. But two, we should also look at what opportunities can these African countries, for example, use to increase their volume of trade with superpowers. There's what the experts have called imbalance of trade, and for me, those were the critical issues. If it remains that high-profile, elitist kind of meeting, then you lose out on many Kenyans who would want to, say, take advantage and sell their wares, sell their, carvings, for example. How would they get cheap credit? Those are the critical issues that are really confronting us. But again, also coming against the background of having had reported long about corruption just weeks before this conference, how does, for example, corruption impacts our ability to trade with crucial partners? Those, for me, are critical issues that our editors have really tried to bring to fore. Try to break down what it means for the common audiences that we try to serve here. Okay.
Mwenda, one of the things that media is known to do is to influence debate and to influence some of the decisions that are made. Have we been effective enough, or has it even been possible for us to do that in regards to the WTO when we look at now, not just Kenya, but as Africa? As a continent. I just read on today's paper that one of the deals that they were trying to pull through may not go through, where Africa would benefit from richer countries and selling their things there. Have we been able to, as a media, push for that?
I think one thing we should do a better job of is explaining why European countries and Western countries in general have an interest in being protectionist. I mean, this is it was bound to be a hard fight because we'd have to answer to the electorate. The farming industry, farming lobbies in Europe and America are extremely strong. Countries like France have been known to be brought down to a standstill because of farmers. So we needed to look at the other side and see what is it that makes them want to be so protectionist. I do believe, as you say, that the media can have a means of affecting the agenda. Already they have. All the stories that have been coming out, people are more critical of WTO and are more critical of international trade. I think they have to be more assertive in this area. We talked about it last time that sometimes the media has to come out and push forward an agenda that's going to be beneficial to the country. So they need to be more assertive in asking for better representation of Africa in terms of trade.
Okay. David, do you feel like we've had that push as media to influence debate in a certain direction?
We can only mirror what the thought leadership is, bringing forward the deals that are being proposed. But it's very difficult, and if you heard one of the experts on KTN yesterday saying it's a very complex issue, you cannot simply unbundle it by merely reporting it. But when you look at, for example, why we need to export our coffee roll, why we need to export our tea roll, and then it goes somewhere in London processed and it's called English tea, then it becomes a very big question. Why do we have to take our coffee to France and have it blended and it's returned here as Nescafe and so on? Those are begging questions that need answers. So until we start doing value addition locally in partnership with those big boys in town, then it's going to be very difficult for us to penetrate the markets. Our flowers, for example, from Kenya are a hit in the European supermarkets.
Right.
But what do ordinary farmers get? What do the workers in Naivasha and environs get in terms of resources? Are they underpaid? Why would a single rose cost $3, $4, $5 in US, while in Naivasha it's less than half $1? Those are questions that we really need to start answering. But we must also start pushing the agenda of increasing our exports also, because we are net importers of nearly everything else, including foodstuff.
More consumers than producers.
So we can't grow the economy that way, and really leaves us in difficult situations. I've seen our good friend Dr. Muhisa Kitui trying to push some of the agenda that may try to help African countries, but it's still a long shot.
In addition, I think the media needs to do a better job of covering what we can do in terms of intra-African trade. Or South-to-South trade, maybe with Asia and other nations that are developing. That's an area that we don't really see a lot of preference in terms of coverage. We are always shown the glamorous side of exporting to the West. So maybe if we looked at exporting within ourselves and other poorer nations, we could get an upper hand. And
what are some of the areas possibly that we could expect to have the media report on, given that the WTO is not yet over, so that we can project and see, can we do that? In other words, wrapping up the whole thing once it's done, in terms of now reporting to those to our readers and our viewers.
We need to give them good history about the issues of trade. Kenya historically has been very powerful when it comes to world trade. Mukisa Kitui made his name internationally when he led a storm out of the meetings. I think it was in Mexico. So Kenya has a high profile when it comes to this issue. So by strengthening our vision of that and telling people that we can do this, and this is how we do it, it should be easy. It should be easy. Okay.
David, before we go on to something else, maybe some of the things we should expect as a summary of the whole WTO.
We would expect Africa, they're saying Africa is rising and this is our moment, but we don't want it merely on lips of Western leaders. We want to see increased exports from Africa. We want to see increased partnership. We want to see cheaper credit coming to our government so that the poor people can be uplifted out of poverty by accessing cheap credit. I think for me those are the critical issues. Very many African countries are still confronted with food deficiency, and those are the issues that should concern us. Can they partner with African countries to make sure that no child sleeps hungry, no mouth goes without medicine? Those, for me, are
pertinent questions.
Sure.
All right. We hope that that's all going to be covered. And now we want to come back to Kenya, basically. And, there's been a lot of politics and things going on. And one of the sagas that's been going on is the Eurobond saga, which has, had twists and turns and left, right, and center. And, of course, right now we sort of have changed focus. of course, and concentrating on the WTO. But I'd just like to bring us up to speed and sort of remind ourselves on what's been going on before we tackle some of the issues that we have reported on the Eurobond and whether we have left it hanging. Gadara normally accuses us of not following up stories and, not, doing a good job of follow-up. So we'll come to that. But let's just refresh our memory on what's been going on the Eurobond saga.
We've had the information from him. And therefore, any other thing after this is not necessary unless there is need to clarify a point with him based on the statement we've received from his lawyers. I reiterate that the summons are issued in good faith, and those summoned should consider it an honor to be found worthy that they have something to assist in investigations or inquiries.
The EACC wrote to Raila Odinga. Tomorrow is going to the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission to record a statement. Let us see what he has, whether the information is authentic or not. Let us wait first for the leader of opposition to give his evidence before the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission before we judge him prematurely. So it is wrong for our leaders, Duale and Kindiki, to call members from recess to come and oppose Raila Odinga even before he tables or he gives his information or his dossier to the Ethics and Corruption Commission. So let us bury our hatchets. Let us forget about our political differences. If Raila has a dossier and he thinks he cannot go to EACC, let him give that dossier to me.
Haja ya kunipinga na kufanya mambo ambayo inaharibu uchumi wa nchi hii. Kwa sababu jameni, unataka Wakenya waumie kwa sababu unachukia uhuru.
Sasa tunauliza hiyo pesa ilijenga barabara gani? Kama reli ilijenga reli gani? Kama ni mradi ya maji ni gani? Kama ni stima ni gani?
Okay, that's basically what's been happening, and I want us to compare when we're reporting about corruption. If we look at the NYS saga that took place, then we look at the Eurobond and some of the way it has been reported. There seems to be a lot of similarity. Have we learned anything from the NYS saga in our reportage now of the Eurobond in terms of putting facts and figures and removing it away from the politics? Mwenda?
I think we have. I think now we're asking for more details. That's why people are making a big deal of the former Prime Minister going to the anti-corruption office and talking to those people about what he had, because people want details now. It's not good enough to just say I think there's corruption. People are moving past that thanks to the media, and they want to see what's the evidence you have. I would like the media to be more critical of the former Prime Minister's refusal to go to the anti-corruption body because that was breaking the law. And like a lot of things, it became a political issue, but at the end of the day, this is someone who's accusing government of breaking the law, yet he doesn't want to follow the same law.
Okay, I will come to that, because there's also the question, and this I posed to several people, regarding whether he really did break the law, and the fact that there was a statement issued by his lawyer, which EACC came out and said they are holding that as a statement. But let me hear from you first, David Ohito, in terms of the comparison between NYS and this when we're reporting about corruption.
I think we have gone a step ahead in looking at facts and figures, trying to break it down. There's particularly a very good edition of the Standard that now did good graphics, what amount of money came in, what went out, what it means to the economy, what did it do, what were the proceeds from the Eurobond, what it means for an economy like ours. And for me, we are moving on from that. But there are also holes which journalists across board have poked in the reportage by the Treasury itself, because they're saying if this is the amount of money that you receive, simply show us which projects they funded. And that answer has not been forthcoming. To simply say that money went to finance infrastructure projects has not been really convincing. People want to see line by line. If it was energy or rural electrification, this amount went there. If it was roads, then this is the much that went there. If it was the rail line, then these are the projects. If it was laptops for primary school kids, then this is the amount.
It's easy to put them just down in facts and figures.
And that is accountability and transparency that reporters are asking for. And this is public funds. If you're going to be in that office, then you must be able to be transparent and accountable. You must be able to answer questions. Going beyond what the Auditor General has asked you, please tell us, going beyond what the Parliamentary Accounts Committee has said on its sessions, to try and poke holes where exactly is the problem. And I think if the next big thing after Eurobond will be the gun stand on MPs. Which MP took how much mileage without traveling? And I think if the day reporters nail that down, the reportage.
Although according to today, I see that Justin Muturi is already discounting the report by EACC. Again, it looks like it's pressure from the MPs. So I don't know whether that's something that we should follow up as to why he's backtracking. Mwenda?
I think reporting on Parliament is like a whole different animal. The things that happen there, you can't explain it. 1 week he said one thing that the comments were quite shocking, actually. Sure. Yeah, from the way he took quite a strong stand, and now he went the complete opposite on it the other day. But it also shows that he is a slave to the popular opinion of his MPs. And if they threat to impeach him, well, what can he do? This is where the media should come out and also support some of these things to go through, because now that the information is out, the media can make sure they follow through and ask and ask and ask until something happens. So it's going to be very hard for them not to act on that, because it was quite glaring what was going on.
Okay, in terms of separating politics and the facts, are we doing that effectively? Coming back to the Eurobond.
It's very difficult to separate facts from politics, because it's intertwined. It's very, very thin line to divide.
And the fact that the whistleblower is also a politician, so he's coming with a political...
Yes, so it comes with the political moss, and it's very difficult to separate it from that. And when you see statements like appear before EACC or face action, legal action, and then it is turned around, the politicians start saying this is intimidation and so on.
And that's a letter they write to everybody, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's it.
So it also becomes very difficult and tells you the tricky line EACC and its officers walk through. But also shows you lack of independence of that particular office. That it's an office that you simply need a press conference or a political rally to tell them, I will not come, and there's nothing they can do. What people want to see are not just lists of people who are suspected, but successful prosecution and of cases of corruption, and people really paying the price for having done that to the nation.
Okay, Mwenda, one of the statements that the president made during his speech on Jamhuri Day was the fact that the sword cuts both ways.
Yes.
So if you come out and accuse or make allegations and you don't have support for it, then of course the government, what he was trying to say is that it could also catch you off guard. We in the media fraternity, have we been guilty of stating facts that have not been proved, or have we done our homework enough? Because I see more and more reports coming out of people saying this is somebody who has no authority to make a statement, does not want to be quoted. Are we getting into a place where we're misusing our right to report, but again becoming careless?
I think to the president's credit, that comment was also hit out against his own people. I mean, you look at the Senator Bill Okero, who made a comment regarding mass graves. And he is a senior member of URP and had to back up that comment. So to his credit, he's also challenging his own people to live up to that expectation. In terms of the media doing it, it's expected as a journalist that when you're going to make a claim, you must have evidence to back it up. In fact, we're just talking about it right before we got on, that before you make any claim, you must have evidence to back it up. And you must have verified that evidence to make sure it's okay. It's not good enough to just get something and say, well, this looks like it's okay. You verify other people and make sure this is actually accurate and can run on. So you have something to protect yourself and protect the dignity of your story and your group end your station.
Are we becoming desperate, David, in terms of having the story run before we have those facts and figures? Because like I said earlier, we have more incidences of, if you read more stories, that is not verified, or people that don't have authority. You cannot quote and say so-and-so is the one who told me, and they are, are given the authority to speak.
It's a very tricky moment for journalists now in the wake of social media and information breaks. And that's why our counterparts in the West call it developing story, because you are in the process of piecing together the facts and figures, piecing together the truth, because we are in the business of telling the truth. And for any story that we publish which lacks in terms of evidence, facts and figures, I think you owe your audiences an apology. Ethically, it's not correct.
Yeah.
So we must be able to verify, check the facts, and ensure that all that is published, all that is consumed by our audiences really meets the threshold of the truth and of facts and figures in the best way possible. They must also meet the threshold of the ethics that comes with the profession. We have had the challenge of following these newsmakers who are just loud, or are politicians, most of them, without really cross-checking facts. But how much time do you have to do that? You are at a political rally. You have Raila Odinga saying, we know this money has been stolen. It's very difficult to go back and look at those facts, because even if you confront him at the same press conference, he may not have the paperwork. It says, come tomorrow, we'll show you. But they have done a good job going and tabling those facts, asking the critical questions, which some have been answered, some not. And really a tricky situation, but honors still lies with the editors, that they must cross-check, they must filter, they must curate the content before the public consumes it.
In the examples that he's giving, I completely agree with that. In fact, I'd go a step further and say you should not even report anything if you've not verified it yourself. So politicians are known to try and be sensational. So before you report something, no matter how juicy that headline might be, it's good to first verify and make sure that this is a story that you're reporting, and don't hide behind the fact that he said it or she said it. Make sure that what you're reporting, because you have a responsibility as a mass media to let people know what is true and what is not.
Would that be where maybe, would we have gone wrong when it comes to the mass graves? Because if you look at the headlines that followed the discovery of this one body, Isnina, and what the leaders in that area were saying, it immediately came out as though there are mass graves.
Yes.
And this was really, it becomes a very tight rope to walk, because you're not saying there are mass graves as a media, you're saying this is what they're saying. But at the same time, you have no time to verify. How do you strike that balance, David?
It's one of the stories that really gave us a lot of difficulties trying to navigate. But the price of telling the truth is also very high. You remember, this is about Mandera. Mandera is about 1,100 and something kilometers from Nairobi, where all medias are headquartered. And it's not a distance you'll say, I'll drive there and get there. You need about 3 days to get there. So we are paying the price of marginalization for a very long time, because no media house has that authentic presence in Mandera. What you need to do is maybe fly there, but it comes also with risk. Is it safe to fly in and go and cross-check these facts? So it's very difficult. Even mobile phone penetration is very minimal. So you have to rely on either the governor, if he picks up the call, or rely on police officers to give you information. But in the event that leaders from that area have congregated in Nairobi and they're saying, we've spoken to our people, they are mass graves, who am I not to give them that chance? The public have a right to information. Yes, and once they have done it, what we can do is to keep on following the story and verifying.
And enough the truth.
Yes.
But there is no doubt, in that particular example, the media dropped the ball.
In what sense?
They should not have run with that story without first verifying whether or not.
But you see the balance here, and that's what I'm trying to see how we can balance this, is the fact that if Ohito says there is a car outside in the parking, all I'm doing is reporting what he has said, as opposed to, well, I look for the information.
But what he has said has major implications in terms of security on the country. So, God forbid, people decided to riot because they felt this is another example of them being marginalized as a region.
Or even just the fear that comes in thinking that...
who would take responsibility for those actions? So certain issues that are sensitive, especially sensitive issues, you must first verify to make sure that this is okay. Because the gravity of what you're going to report could have unintended consequences that you never even planned for. Yeah.
All right, David, do you feel that the media dropped the ball in this particular case?
I don't think. I have covered Bill Okera for more than 3 sessions of Parliament. That's over 15 years. He's one of very sober leaders, which is why we even consider him as a columnist in the Standard Group. He's no ordinary politician who would go to a rally to say anything else. And when he came to a press conference with leaders from that part of the country, Mandera, and they are saying they are mass graves. I mean, we had to give him that benefit of doubt. In any case, we turn on our lenses of camera on very many low-cadre politicians, but he's been a fairly credible individual, and which is why after he verified himself, he went again and said, I apologize, I misled the public. And it happens. It not only in Kenya, it happens even in the US. So I don't think we dropped the ball, but for me the problem is the media is still is covering the railway line which was established by the colonialists. There are so many parts of this country that we are unable to cover effectively and efficiently. How many stories do you see from Tana River? How many stories are coming from Samburu? How many from Turkana, Mandera, Wajir, and so on? Because we have over-concentrated ourselves in the
urban
areas, period. So for us to verify an incident in Mandera, we have only to rely on the authorities. And the authorities were saying, yes, let's give it a doubt. We are getting to the ground. What else?
But what's the reason for that? Is it down to the media fraternity investing in reporters who can go to such areas, or what has been the impediment for us getting there, away from security?
I think the way we have shaped and framed our content really marginalizes those areas, and it's really unfair for those parts of the country that have been marginalized over 50 years. If you hired any graduate today, told him I want to post you to Mandera, I'm very sure, like the teachers did, 90% of the respondents would tell you, no, if it's Mandera, forget about it. So how then can we tailor ourselves? Not that Mandera is going to remain uncovered for the rest of the life. And I know I've tried to do even content analysis on coverage of Mandera. There was literally nothing about Mandera which was positive. What there were in the archives were the either shifter attacks, a police officer killed by, those improvised devices. Then there was the massacre,
In fact, the first story,
it's all negative.
The first story is on Mandera when he was a county was if the governor trying to be killed.
Yeah.
You
see?
So we have this stereotype of the area being just drenched in violence. One thing that I did like about the media, and we could contrast the reaction to the senator's mistake and his acceptance of following the rule of law as compared to the former prime minister. When he found out that he was on the wrong, he did not make a political story out of it. He reported himself to the police station and he was let go and he apologized. Now we look at the contrast of what's happening with the EACC issue and the former prime minister, and you can see how things could have gone if he had taken that other angle.
Okay. But the EACC officers visited Raila's office. His lawyers, who are very competent lawyers, advocates of the High Court and many other courts, wrote and gave the evidence on his behalf. So if it's political mileage EACC wanted, I don't know. But you could see how they also bungled up the whole issue. What example are they setting up? If you are looking to talk to Raila Odinga, do you need to address him through a press conference? Those are also begging questions on the way EACC conducted.
But they tried to reach him. The reason they did that, they tried to reach him, but he was not available.
No, Raila Odinga does not live in a hole like a rat. He lives in a fixed address.
Clearly, if he wanted to be found, he would have been found.
Yes, so to tell us that they tried to look for him and couldn't find him, I mean,
And again, is there a difference as much as they could have found him, David? Is there a difference when we're talking about certain figures that require a statement? Because he also made a statement. He could have gone to the EACC, or he could have gone to the CS's office, Rotich's office, and said that, look, where are the documents for this? But he made a public statement. So maybe he requires a public answer.
Yeah. And I think he's just playing his role as the opposition. If you analyze reportage or stories on corruption, if you mute all that Raila Odinga has done over the last 6 months, what other story would you be talking about? Zero. So he's perfectly in line doing his job as leader of opposition.
And as a result, as a result, then does the EACC not have a good foundation to say that, look, we're giving an answer to Raila, but in public, so that everybody knows what the answer is?
And
They could have done that.
the bigger issue is the history behind all this. The former Prime Minister has a history of following the law when it's to his advantage. We have one of the principals of CORD who's been accused of corruption. He has not spoken a word about this. Not spoken a single word about this. Isn't that a bit weird?
And again, Mwenda, now in that regard, shouldn't do we have a responsibility to ask those questions? Have we asked those questions enough?
We have not asked those questions because by sheer sense of the fact that the Prime Minister is an institution in himself, he can intimidate systems to bend to his will, and also he's not held accountable for actions that other people are held accountable for. And we need to really ask these questions: is that being fair? Is that being fair to the other people that are being questioned the same way he's not?
Okay. David Ohito, have we been unfair in
Yes,
questioning?
I agree with Mwenda. We should ask all questions about corruption, whether they're in opposition or in government or even in the private sector. We would have liked to see the position of court leaders on declaration of wealth, how they acquired their wealth. We would have seen, would have liked to see what the president owns, how he acquired it, the deputy president, where he gets the millions he gives out in Harambes. And those are pertinent questions that I think all journalists should be asking, and not just the deputy president. Let's scale it down to all the MPs. You go home, whether it's CDF, Kitty, it should be clarified, because you are a public officer, you are a state officer, you are, you have access to state funds. You should tell people in a transparent and accountable way that these funds I'm giving here are from either my personal investments, or they're from myself and my friends, or they are from, public coffers, so that we eliminate those possibilities of just rumors and gossips around where does he get his money.
Okay. In the fight to corruption, and it's good you've brought this up, it was headlines when CEOs, Bob Collymore and Waigara, declared their wealth, and we were more inclined to see how much they earn and all that. But how do we follow up this story to ensure, because again, as the media, we need to make sure that we keep the questions, the pertinent questions running. How do we run with this story to ensure that this does not just end with the two CEOs, but now moves to the place that is even more crucial, which is government?
The call for the president to have the private sector do more to fight corruption was a great call, and it's good to see that they have responded. But what the media needs to challenge more is the fact that the KCB and Safaricom CEO, we all know their heads are very big companies, so they're going to make a lot of money. What you want to know about is the smaller companies who are living lifestyles that just don't make sense. You're head of a company that's losing money, yet you're living an amazing lifestyle. You have a big house, a big car, and your company statements don't support it. So it was expected that those guys would make money. What about the rest of the people in the system? The rest of the people in KCB, the rest of the people in Safaricom, how much money are they making?
But wouldn't that now be literally hounding them for something they've not done? Because really they have their own system. But here we're talking about accountability and our public leaders declaring their wealth.
I disagree, because those are the ones who actually perpetuate the corruption more than the CEOs. The guys in middle management are the ones who are dealing with government and pushing through certain policies or certain ideas that are beneficial to them, sometimes without the knowledge of the CEO. So it would be important to know about them as well, because a lot of corruption happens there.
Okay. David?
I would be more interested in the banking sector, for example, because no single government
Transaction in shillings
does not go through a bank. So if Oigara would have moved a step further to say that I will also unleash the lid of the accounts that look fishy and where government transactions have been done, or even private sector transactions, should you get me a court order? I know there's a privacy policy.
Does he have the power to do that?
Yeah, and on what grounds would he do that? Because he cannot say this is fishy and that is not. That would be a totally different office.
There are rare transactions that must be passed through the central bank. Anything above 1 million bob, you must notify that this client is removing. And it's very clear, if you withdraw that money, you must show what is this money going to do. And once we start getting to that level of transparency and accountability, then it becomes very easy to trace.
Personally,
why would an individual want to withdraw 100 million shillings in cash? You know, those are begging because they are trying to avoid traceability.
But I think that's a slippery slope, if I may disagree, because who are we to decide why you want to remove 100 million from your account? If you want to remove 100 million,
after all, it's your money.
It's your money.
Your money. No, what we are saying,
as long as there's no evidence.
You see, Mwenda, it's just like you said, what about removing that 100 million shillings to go and buy drugs or destabilize the security of a country? Those are issues that we can't run away from. And that's why the transactions in the West are electronic. You can know this money was moved on this day, this is where it went, and the next transaction took place. It's very easy to trace than when you remove 100 million shillings in Nairobi, and then nobody can know whether this money went to Mandera or went to Siaya. If you do that electronically, it is traceable, and it's not for any other reason. It's just to know we don't want to touch your money, but it is money earned
for accountability and transparency.
Is it earned genuinely? Has taxes been deducted if they are taxable? Has it done value to the economy? Is it being used as this money laundering, for example? What projects is it financing? Then you get to know how to grow a country in a very structured way.
But there has to be a criteria to decide on whether or not to go into this account or not. You know, there has to be a criteria that you look at. It can't be arbitrary. The CEO can't just wake up and say, you know what, these people look a bit funny, so let me look into them.
Let me tell you, when you go to a bank account, is withdrawing 25 million from a government account, the banker has every right to ask you, what services did you offer? Is there proof that you offered this?
Wouldn't that now be throwing the banking industry into investigative,
which is not their role.
Which is not their role. Theirs is to bank the money, put the money for you and whatever. But now that's investigative, or are they to raise questions? But again, we're moving away from media. What's our responsibility and the public officers in terms? We do know that they when they came into power, I think it was in this current government, or it was Kibaki. One of the things that they were supposed to do is declare their wealth. This has not happened so far, which is why when the two CEOs declared their wealth, then it becomes headlines news. But do we have a responsibility to ensure now that public figures actually do that?
But what's happened after that? I mean, those two declared their wealth. What's happened after that? Nothing else has happened after that.
We saw how much they earn, and that seems to have been it.
Nobody else woke up and said, you know what, I'm going to talk about it.
And that's what I'm saying. Does the media now have a responsibility to follow it up and ask, hey, how come that if this is what was agreed between the corporate sector and manufacturers and the government, how come the corporate sector has come out and done that and the government is not doing that?
We need to do that. I mean, there are many situations there. There is a young man who's supposed to be a billionaire who the papers always cover.
As a billionaire?
Yeah, a young billionaire. But they don't know how he made his money. But we are more than happy to celebrate him. I think his name is Stephen Bogo or something. We need to ask questions, you know. You say you're a billionaire, how did you make your money? But we celebrate people like those. We celebrate people like those. So that needs to change within the media. That needs to change within the media, because we cannot celebrate the same people who we are going to be accusing of corruption. You know, maybe 10 years from now, Steve Mbogo will be giving young people lectures on how he made it in Kenya. You know, this is how crazy this situation is. We also need to challenge other forms of the private sector, like lawyers. We saw with the issue of
Bengethi,
how much money was being channeled through his lawyers. Lawyers are a major conduit for corruption in Kenya. And they need to be challenged. They need to put a stronger spotlight on them. You know, they always have money just sitting around in their accounts. They don't want to explain. And so why do they have that cash? Who is it for?
And where does it come from?
Yes.
And why do you think it's being wired through lawyers? Because it answers the same question I was raising. If you do it as an individual, the banker will ask you, a guy, what is this money for? Where is it coming from? Or did you supply gumboots to NYS? Yes. Show me the supply and delivery notes. I'll pay you your money. We have it. But when you take it through the law firms, they say, I'm holding on behalf of my client.
Yeah, and you can't ask.
And the law allows him to do so.
Yeah.
So those are loopholes that are there that are being used.
We really need to seal.
Okay. Finally, as we finish, Burundi, there's been a lot happening there, and I'm not sure there's been enough coverage to actually reveal to us. Are we waiting for genocide so that we can report?
I don't think it's at a stage of genocide yet. I think things are bad, but they're not as bad as they were 10 years ago. What's shocking, we've not had anything from the AU or from many African leaders talking about not a single peep. So it'd be good to ask what did this guy think? What's going on? Kenyans have been supporting them. There was a vigil that was held.
Yes, I think it was on Sunday or Monday.
Yeah, so that's quite positive. And if we can challenge our leaders to ask questions, maybe they can get a resolution to the problem.
Okay, David Ohito, as we wind up, your comments on Burundi.
We have really turned a blind eye again on Burundi. And if you saw the images over the weekend, particularly of the mass killings, over 90 people killed, you know, it's another sad state of an African nation. And you saw what is happening in Sierra. I was watching on KTN, Central African Republic. I think Africa has come of age, and we cannot rise if we are going to have that kind of leadership. Why somebody should stay for extended periods in power? Those are very begging questions. And I think the world should help Burundi step in before it gets out of hand and save lives. No single African should be losing their life simply because an individual wants to extend their terms in power.
All right, thank you very much, David Ohito, digital editor with the Standard Group, and also Mwenda Kilemi, who is a lecturer at the University of Nairobi Communications Department. Thank you very much, gentlemen. That's where we wind up Newsroom this morning, but do stay with us. We do have News Hour coming up in just about 5 to 6 minutes right here on KTN News.